The research station drifted in silent orbit around the dying star. Its white light flooded the long windows of the observation deck, and the metal walls reflected it with a dull glow. The station had been built to watch the star's final years. It was one of the brightest objects in this part of space, but its energy had started to fade. Every day the scientists studied its surface, hoping to learn more about how stars aged and collapsed. Daniel walked along the deck, his boots echoing faintly against the floor. He was a systems officer, not a scientist, but he loved watching the star as much as the others. There was something peaceful about the endless flame, even though he knew it was slowly dying. A figure stood at the far end of the deck. Her name was Mira. She was one of the youngest on the station, quiet and reserved. Mira was part of the research team, but she rarely spoke in meetings. Most of the crew thought she was strange. She never joined conversations in the dining hall and never laughed at the jokes others shared. She spent most of her time here on the deck, standing still as if the star itself held her attention more than any human voice. Daniel had noticed her many times before. At first he assumed she was shy. Then he thought maybe she simply did not like people. But the more he saw her, the more he wondered if there was something deeper about her silence. The star outside pulsed faintly, releasing waves of light across the glass. Mira's face reflected against the window, her eyes wide, unblinking. Daniel paused a short distance behind her. "You'll hurt your eyes if you stare at it for too long," he said gently. She did not turn. "It doesn't hurt," she answered softly. Her voice was quiet, almost like she was speaking to herself. Daniel stepped closer. He wanted to say more, but he was unsure how. Mira had a way of ending conversations before they could begin. That night in the dining hall, Daniel sat with a few others. Laughter filled the room, but Mira sat alone at a table in the corner. She picked at her food without really eating. Her eyes kept drifting to the walls as if the star's presence followed her even here. "Why does she act like that?" one of the engineers whispered to Daniel. "Always off on her own. Gives me chills," Daniel frowned. "She isn't hurting anyone. She doesn't even like to be touched. I saw someone brush her arm once and she flinched like she'd been burned." Daniel let the words sink in but said nothing. He looked at Mira, sitting in silence, and felt a strange pull. Something about her isolation seemed unfair. Days passed. The star flared once, sending a ripple of energy through the station. Alarms blared for several minutes before the system stabilized. Everyone hurried to their posts, running checks on equipment. Daniel found Mira again on the deck, standing motionless while red lights flashed overhead. "You should be in the lab," Daniel told her. Her gaze never left the window. "It is only speaking louder," she whispered. Daniel tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Mira shook her head quickly as though she regretted the words. "Nothing. Forget it." But Daniel could not forget. Later that week, Daniel found her again, standing in the same place, watching the same star. This time he walked straight to her side. For a long moment, they both stared out the window together. "Why do you always come here?" he asked. "Because it calls," she said simply. Daniel felt a chill. He had expected silence, not an answer like that. "What calls?" he pressed. She did not look at him. "The star." Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. "The star?" She sounded serious, not playful or joking. He studied her face and saw no trace of amusement. He thought of the way the others avoided her. Maybe this was why. Maybe she spoke of strange things no one else could understand. But instead of pulling away, Daniel felt more curious. "You believe it calls to you?" he asked softly. Her lips pressed together. She did not reply. Daniel stood quietly at her side, unsure what else to say. For some reason, he wanted her to keep speaking. He wanted to know what secret she carried. But when she stayed silent, he sighed and turned to leave. Just as he stepped back, the station shuddered again. Lights flickered, alarms beeped. Mira swayed slightly, and Daniel instinctively reached out. His hand touched hers. For the first time, Mira did not pull away. Her hand trembled, but she let his fingers close around hers. Her skin was cold. In that fragile moment, she leaned closer. Her voice came so soft that only Daniel could hear it. "The star is not dying," she whispered. "It is speaking." Daniel froze. The words hung between them like a hidden thread. He could not even breathe. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low. But Mira shook her head quickly, pulling her hand back as if she had broken some rule. She turned and walked away without another word, leaving Daniel standing alone, heart pounding, staring at the endless fire outside. The next morning, Daniel could not focus on his duties. The phrase echoed in his head. The star is not dying. It is speaking. He tried to dismiss it as nonsense, but the memory of Mira's eyes, the weight of her whisper, would not fade. He remembered how cold her hand felt, and how she had allowed him to hold it when she had refused touch from anyone else. During his shift, Daniel checked the station's logs. He reviewed the last set of data from the star. Nothing seemed unusual, just the expected decline of a star near its end. But when he looked closer, he noticed faint irregular pulses in the energy readings. They almost looked like patterns. He leaned back, unsettled. Could Mira have seen this? Could she know something the rest of them did not? At dinner, Daniel sat near Mira. She did not look at him, but he spoke anyway. About yesterday, he began. Her fork froze in her hand. Slowly, she lifted her eyes, sharp and uncertain. You told me the star is speaking, Daniel said. What did you mean? Mira's jaw tightened. For a moment, he thought she would ignore him. Then she set her fork down. I should not have said it, she murmured. But you did. Daniel pressed. Why? She looked around the hall. The others were too busy laughing and talking to notice. Still, she leaned closer. Because you touched my hand, she said. Daniel blinked. What does that have to do with anything? Her eyes darkened. I have kept silent for years. But when you touched me, it broke something. I cannot explain it. And I cannot say more. Then she rose, taking her tray, and walked out. Daniel stared after her, more confused than before. That night, alone in his quarters, Daniel lay awake. He thought about her words. He thought about the irregular patterns in the star's signals. He thought about the strange way she lived, always apart, always watching. The research station moved in its endless path around the dim star. Metal groaned softly with each shift of gravity, and the lights hummed with the sound of tired power systems. For most of the crew, life carried on as usual. Long hours of observation, routine maintenance, and short periods of rest. But for Daniel, nothing felt the same after Mira's whisper. He kept hearing the words in his mind. The star is not dying, it is speaking. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Mira's pale face, her hand trembling inside his, her eyes filled with quiet fear. At first, Daniel thought maybe she had imagined it. People who spent too much time alone sometimes created strange ideas. But then he remembered the unusual pulses he had noticed in the star's readings. The patterns had not matched natural behavior. He could not let it go. The next day, he found Mira in the lab. She sat at a table, a thin screen glowing in front of her. Lines and dots formed across the screen like star charts. Her fingers moved slowly, drawing shapes with care, almost like she was copying something she had seen. Daniel stepped closer. What are you making? Mira did not look up. Nothing important, she said quietly. It looks like a map, she paused. Her hand stilled on the screen. You should not be here, she whispered. Then why do you sit where anyone can see? Daniel asked. Finally, she looked up at him. Her eyes were sharp, but her face looked tired, as though she carried too much weight. Because I want someone to ask, she admitted. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Then tell me, what is it? She tapped the screen once. Not a map of our stars. Not a map of anything you would know. It is a memory. A voice that draws itself inside me when the star speaks. Daniel leaned closer, studying the strange patterns. They looked like constellations, but not the ones he recognized. Some shapes curved like spirals, others bent in impossible angles. It felt unnatural, yet also deliberate. You hear voices? Daniel asked slowly. Mira nodded. Not like speech between people. Not words, not sound. It is more like pressure. A push inside the mind. When I am near the star, it is strongest. It shows me shapes. It shows me paths. Daniel frowned. Does anyone else know? No, if they did, I would not be here. Her words hung heavy. Daniel wondered what she meant by that. Was she hiding from someone? From the rest of the crew? Or from something larger? Before he could ask, the station lights flickered. A low rumble shook the walls and alarms began to sound. Daniel and Mira hurried to the nearest console. Power drop in Sector 3, the calm voice reported. Stabilizers failing. All hands report, the screens flashed red. Numbers rolled quickly, showing sudden energy surges from the star. The readings did not match anything in the archives. It's too strong, someone shouted across the lab. The star's activity is unpredictable. Daniel looked at Mira. She stared at the screen, her lips moving without sound, as if repeating something. "What is it?" Daniel asked. "It is not the star," she whispered. "It is the machine inside." Daniel froze. "Machine? What machine?" But Mira shook her head, eyes wide, like she had already said too much. The alarms faded as the system stabilized again, but the crew remained shaken. For the rest of the shift, everyone worked to check equipment, run scans, and file reports. Daniel stayed close to Mira, waiting for a moment to speak again. When the lab grew quiet, he finally asked, "What did you mean, a machine inside?" Mira glanced around to be sure no one was near. Then she leaned closer. "Long ago before us, something was placed inside the star. It sleeps. But the voices are signs of it stirring." Daniel could barely breathe. "How do you know this?" "I hear it," her voice trembled. "I have heard it all my life. My family raised me to hide it, but here I cannot escape. The star is too near, the voice too strong, and when you held my hand, I could no longer keep silent." Daniel struggled to process her words. A machine inside a star? How could that be possible? And if it were true, why would it speak to her? "Mira," he said carefully, "you cannot carry this alone. If what you say is true, the others need to know." Her eyes widened with fear. "No, if they know, they will try to wake it. Humans always want control. They will think it is a weapon. They will reach for it." Daniel could not argue with that. He had seen how quickly humans claimed anything powerful, no matter the risk. "But then what do we do?" he asked. "We listen," she said simply, "and we do not let anyone else learn the truth." That night, Daniel returned to his quarters, but he could not rest. He kept seeing Mira's drawings. He kept hearing her words. A machine inside the star. A voice speaking through light and energy. It sounded impossible, yet he could not shake the feeling that she was right. In the early hours, the lights went out. The entire station shuddered, plunging into darkness. Emergency systems kicked in, flooding the halls with dim red glow. Doors hissed open as crew members scrambled through corridors. Daniel rushed to the observation deck. Mira was already there. She stood with her hand against the glass, her face pale in the red light. "The voice is stronger," she whispered. Daniel joined her at the window. The star pulsed unevenly, sending bright flares across its surface. For the first time, Daniel thought he felt it too. Not words, not sound, but a faint pressure inside his chest, as if something vast and unseen pressed against his mind. "Do you feel it?" Mira asked. Daniel swallowed hard. I think I do." Her eyes softened with relief. "Then you understand." "Understand what?" "That we are not watching a death. We are standing at a doorway." Daniel's heart raced. "A doorway to what?" The crew repaired the systems by morning, but whispers spread. Many believed the star was becoming unstable faster than expected. Some suggested abandoning orbit and retreating to safer ground. But the command staff refused. The research was too valuable. Daniel noticed that Mira grew more withdrawn with each day. She spoke only to him now, and only in quiet moments when no one else could hear. "You must not repeat what I tell you," she warned. "The voices are not meant for all. They are meant for a few who can hear." Daniel nodded, though the burden pressed heavily on him. He did not like secrets, but he could not deny the fear in her eyes. One evening, she showed him another drawing. It looked like a great sphere surrounded by rings. Symbols filled the space around it. "What is this?" Daniel asked. "The heart of the machine," Mira whispered. "It is not built of metal, we know. It is older than us. It is alive in ways we cannot imagine. If someone wakes it, it will not serve. It will decide." Daniel felt a chill. "Decide what?" "Whether to keep us or to erase us." The words struck Daniel like a blow. He wanted to dismiss them, to call them nonsense, but the fear in Mira's face stopped him. She believed every word, and worse, some part of him believed it too. That night, when Daniel finally returned to his bed, he realized his life had changed. He could no longer see the star as just a ball of burning gas. It was now a vessel hiding something vast and terrible, and only Mira, the girl no one wanted to listen to, seemed to know the truth. The star burned dim in the black sea of space, its light flashing in uneven waves. From a distance it looked peaceful, but on the research station the crew felt every pulse. The machines rattled with each flare, the walls shook faintly, and the air carried a tension no one could escape. Daniel stood in the observation deck once again. His eyes followed the chaotic movement across the star's surface. He wanted to believe it was only natural, that Mira's words were just her imagination. Yet when the pulses rolled through his chest, he could not deny that they felt more like messages than accidents. Behind him, the door hissed open. Mira entered quietly, her steps light. She always walked as though she did not want the floor to hear her. She came to stand beside him. "You stayed up all night again," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "I can't stop thinking about what you told me." "You should stop," she whispered. "It will only pull you deeper." He looked at her. "Then tell me everything. No more half answers." "What is really happening?" Mira hesitated. Her hands tightened into fists. She kept her eyes on the star, as if drawing strength from it. Finally she spoke. "When I was a child, I heard voices others could not. At first I thought they came from dreams. My family feared it. They took me to doctors, but nothing was wrong with my body. It was my mind they called strange." Daniel listened closely. Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried old pain. "Then one day a man came to us. He said I was not broken. He said I was chosen. He worked for people who studied things hidden from the world. He told my parents I could hear the language of stars." Daniel's chest tightened. "You were taken?" Mira nodded slowly. "They placed me in a program. I was trained to listen. They showed me signals, patterns, lights from distant systems. They asked me to repeat what I heard. I learned to draw the shapes, to write the sounds. They were searching for a voice not human, and they thought I was a doorway." Daniel felt anger rising inside him. "That's not training. That's using you." Her lips curved into a faint, sad smile. "Yes, I was a tool. For years they made me listen. Then one night, the voice of this star reached me. It was not like the others. It was stronger. It filled my head until I could not breathe. I knew then that inside it was not fire alone. Something slept there. Something built." Daniel shivered. "That is why you came here, isn't it?" "I did not choose to come. They placed me here. I am their experiment. But they do not know what the voice says. They cannot hear it like I do. They only see the patterns in data. They believe it is science. They do not understand it as warning." Daniel turned back to the window. The star's surface rippled with another flare, brighter than before. "What is the warning?" he asked. Mira lowered her voice. "If the machine wakes, it will not wait for orders. It is not a weapon to be used. It will judge. It will decide if we deserve to remain. The voice tells me it has done this before in places long gone." Whole skies erased. Daniel's stomach tightened. He wanted to dismiss it as fear, as madness, but something in the weight of her words stopped him. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Why tell me and not anyone else?" Mira looked at him for a long time. "Because when you touched my hand, the silence inside me broke. I cannot explain it. The voice has always pressed against me, but I carried it alone. When you held my hand, it was like the voice spread into you as well. You are part of it now, whether you want it or not." Daniel stepped back, stunned. He remembered the coldness of her skin, the tremble in her voice. He remembered the sudden weight he had felt since that moment. Before he could respond, the station shook violently. Lights flickered, alarms rang, and voices shouted over the comm. Unstable surge from the star, energy output rising, systems struggling to compensate. Daniel and Mira rushed out of the deck. In the control center, screens blazed with red warnings. Numbers scrolled too fast to follow. Crew members shouted as they worked to stabilize the readings. "The star is flaring too often," one officer yelled. "It's not following collapse models," another voice cut in. "These aren't natural patterns. Look at the sequence." Daniel leaned closer. The pulses were repeating, not randomly, but in a rhythm. His mind spun as he realized what he was seeing. It was almost like code. Mira's eyes widened. She grabbed his arm. "Do not say it. If they see it, they will know. They will search for meaning." That cannot happen, but it was too late. Commander Harris, the head of the station, had already noticed. He pointed at the screen. "Run a deep scan on that sequence. I want every translation model applied. This might be more than a simple flare." Mira's hand tightened on Daniel's sleeve. Her face was pale with fear. Later, when the crisis calmed, Daniel found her in a maintenance corridor, hidden from the others. She stood with her back against the wall, breathing fast. "They saw it," she whispered. "They will not stop now. They will search until they uncover the truth. And when they do, they will try to use it." Daniel felt helpless. "What can we do?" "We can't stop them from running scans." Mira shook her head. "Then we must make sure they never understand what they find." Daniel stared at her, unsure if he could agree to that. He had sworn to follow orders to serve the mission. But if Mira was right, telling the truth might doom them all. That night, Daniel lay in his bunk, restless. his mind filled with Mira's voice, the images she had drawn, the words she had spoken. He remembered how the patterns on the screen had looked less like data and more like a language reaching out across time. In his half-sleep, he dreamed of the star. He dreamed it opened like an eye, staring at him, waiting for his answer. He woke with sweat on his forehead and the echo of Mira's whisper in his ears. It will decide. The next day, the crew gathered for a full briefing. The commander announced that the patterns were under investigation. Teams had already been assigned to decode them. Excitement filled the room. Many believed this was the first step toward contact with something alien. Daniel glanced at Mira. She sat silent in the corner, her eyes downcast. To everyone else, she looked as detached as ever, but Daniel could see her hands trembling in her lap. After the meeting, he followed her back to her quarters. She closed the door quickly, as if afraid of being overheard. "They think it is language," Daniel said quietly. "It is," she whispered, "but not one human should speak." "Then what happens if they translate it?" Mira's eyes lifted to his, full of dread. "They will call to it. And it will answer." Daniel felt the weight of her words sink into him. He could see the path ahead. The crew's excitement, their hunger for discovery, their belief that everything in the universe could be conquered if only they understood it. And he knew Mira was right. They would call. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. She looked at him with sorrow. "Stand with me. When the time comes, we may be the only ones who can keep it asleep." Daniel nodded slowly, though his heart pounded with fear. He did not know what danger awaited, but he knew one thing with certainty: he could not leave her to face it alone. The star's pulse had grown stronger each day. Its light washed over the research station in bursts that seemed almost intentional. Every system, every sensor felt the ripple. Daniel could not ignore it. Neither could Mira. She stayed near the observation deck, watching the star with a mixture of fear and determination. Daniel followed her quietly, careful not to disturb her focus. She had grown distant from the rest of the crew. Only he could speak with her, and even then only in whispers. He did not mind. He had made a silent promise after the first time she had allowed him to hold her hand. He would not leave her alone in this. "Daniel," Mira said suddenly, her voice low. "The star's pulses are changing. They are faster now, like it is preparing." Daniel glanced at the displays. The energy readings had spiked again, higher than any previous warning. "Preparing for what?" he asked. She shook her head. "I do not know, but I think it is waiting for something or someone to answer. If the others discover the patterns, they will call, and it will respond." Daniel swallowed. The crew was already talking about decoding the signals. It was only a matter of time before someone tried. He reached for her hand. Mira let him take it. The touch steadied both of them. "We need a plan," he said. She nodded. "I have been thinking. We must make sure the machine cannot awaken. But the others will not listen to reason. They will see this as opportunity, not danger." Daniel frowned. "Then what do we do?" Mira looked out the window at the pulsing star. "We cannot let anyone touch the controls that send signals. If it hears human voices, it will respond, and it will judge us." Daniel's mind raced. He could imagine the reactions. Scientists eager to translate the patterns, officers curious to test them, engineers wanting to follow protocols. No one would understand that some doors were meant to stay closed. Over the next days, the tension grew. The crew worked tirelessly to study the star. Every alarm, every pulse of energy brought excitement instead of fear. Only Daniel and Mira sensed the danger. They moved quietly, careful not to draw attention. One evening, the commander called an emergency meeting. "The star is showing patterns that could indicate intelligent communication," he announced. "We will begin tests to decode the sequences. This could be the first step in human contact with a new intelligence." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. He exchanged a glance with Mira. She looked pale, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. After the meeting, Daniel found her alone in a maintenance corridor. "They will try to send messages," he whispered. "They already are," Mira said. "They think they are sending commands to the star, but it is listening for more than commands. It is listening for intention." Daniel felt the weight of her words. Intention? "It judges humans by their choice," Mira said. "If they see the star as a tool, it will respond with force. If they see it as a teacher, it may choose to leave us unharmed. But they will not see it that way. They never do. Daniel took a deep breath. Then we must stop them. Mira looked at him. We may have to choose who lives. If the machine awakens, it will judge everyone on this station. Only those who understand its warning may survive. Daniel's heart pounded. He had faced danger before, but nothing like this. He wanted to protect everyone. But Mira was right. The crew would act without understanding. The following day, Daniel and Mira quietly disabled the communication relay. They worked fast, careful not to alert anyone. Every time someone approached, they pretended to check unrelated systems. It was delicate work. One mistake could expose them. By evening, they had partially succeeded. The star continued to pulse, but no signals could be sent from the station. For the first time, they felt a small measure of control. Mira allowed herself a brief smile. It is not much, but it may be enough, she said. Daniel nodded. We have to keep it safe until the star's pattern calms. Then we can explain to the others. But the calm did not come. That night, alarms blared again. The station shook violently, stronger than ever before. Lights flickered and red warnings filled every display. The star's energy spike is off the charts, an engineer shouted. Daniel and Mira ran to the observation deck. The star glowed brightly, sending waves of energy that rattled the metal walls. Mira's hand pressed against Daniel's. The pressure they felt was like a heartbeat, large and relentless. It is close to waking, Mira whispered. We must hold it. Daniel looked at her. Hold it? How? She swallowed, her voice trembling. The star listens to human touch. It reacts to trust. It will test us. If we show fear or selfishness, it will act against us. We must remain calm, together. The next hours were tense. Daniel and Mira stood side by side, watching the star, holding hands, focusing their thoughts on the idea of protection and care. They tried to keep their emotions steady, resisting panic. Some crew members noticed the alarm, but none understood the full danger. They assumed it was a technical glitch. Daniel and Mira kept their explanations vague, pretending it was another system error. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the pulses began to soften. The star's glow dimmed slightly. The shaking stopped. The alarms went silent. Mira slumped against the window, exhausted. It listened, she said softly. It did not judge us yet. Daniel let go of her hand, but he stayed close. What happens now? He asked. We wait, Mira said. And we prepare. The others will not stop their tests forever. When they try again, the star will know their intention. We must be ready to guide it, to protect humanity. Days passed. The crew grew restless, eager to resume experiments. Daniel and Mira worked in secret, subtly redirecting efforts away from the communication systems. They did their best to hide their actions from everyone, knowing that discovery could be catastrophic. One night, Mira confided something to Daniel. I never expected to find someone I could trust. No one else could hear me. But you feel what I feel. That makes you part of this. Daniel nodded. I cannot leave you alone in this. Whatever happens, I will stay. Her eyes softened. Then we have a chance. The star is listening. It is patient, but it is testing us. Soon we may have to make a choice that will determine everyone's fate. Daniel felt a cold dread settle over him. He knew she was right. The choice would come, and when it did, they could not fail. As they watched the star together, the pulse of light seemed almost deliberate. It was as if it could sense their thoughts. Daniel realized that the star was no longer just an object to study. It was alive in a way he could barely comprehend. It was watching, judging, waiting, and he knew that soon the truth would demand more than observation. It would demand courage. It would demand trust. The star's light had become almost unbearable. Its pulses shook the research station violently, and every system was under strain. Red alarms flashed across consoles. Crew members rushed through corridors shouting orders and warnings. Fear hung in the air like a dense fog. Daniel ran alongside Mira to the observation deck. Her hand found his instantly, and they held it tightly. There was no time for hesitation. Every fiber of their attention had to be focused on the star. It's awake, Mira whispered, her voice trembling but steady. It knows we are here. It is testing us. Daniel looked at her, trying to steady his own fear. He could feel the pressure in his chest, the unnatural rhythm that had begun to grow stronger each hour. He realized that this was no ordinary star. It was alive. It could sense intent, and it could act. Mira's face was pale but determined. We must not let anyone else interfere. If the others touch the controls, if they try to call to it, It will judge humanity. We could all be gone, Daniel nodded. Then we keep it calm. Together, the star pulsed again, sending a wave of energy that rattled the station violently. Daniel felt the warmth and the force in his hand, through Mira's touch through his own body. It was as if the star were reaching for them, pressing into their minds, testing their resolve. Mira's voice broke through the chaos. Focus on trust. Focus on care. The star listens to intention. We must show it ours. They both closed their eyes, letting their thoughts settle. Daniel thought of protection, of hope, of every human life aboard the station. Mira added her own thoughts, calm and steady, projecting the belief that humans could be trusted to survive, to respect the intelligence within the star. The station's alarms began to slow, though the star's light remained intense. Red glows shifted to yellow, then faded to a softer white. Daniel opened his eyes. Mira's hand was shaking, but she held fast. It's responding, she whispered. It is listening, Daniel nodded. We need to keep it that way. We cannot let anyone disrupt this calm. But not all of the crew shared their understanding. Commander Harris had been watching from a distance, confused and frustrated. What are they doing? He muttered. They are ignoring protocols. They are not reporting readings. Stop them! The commander moved toward the observation deck, flanked by 2 officers. Their boots echoed loudly against the metal floor. Daniel and Mira noticed them just in time. They cannot touch the controls, Mira said, panic rising in her voice. If they do, it will judge, Daniel's mind raced. We cannot stop them physically. But maybe. He reached for Mira's hand. Together they projected a sense of calm, hope, and trust toward the star. The pulses of light intensified, but in a way that seemed protective, like a shield forming around the deck. As the officers approached, the star sent a blinding flare. The observation deck trembled violently, forcing everyone to fall to their knees. The commander froze, shielding his eyes, and the other officers were thrown back slightly. The star's power had made it impossible for anyone with selfish or fearful intent to reach the controls. Daniel looked at Mira. It's judging their intent. Only we can guide it. Mira nodded, exhausted but steady. It tests us now. We must speak together. They leaned close, speaking in whispers that only each other could hear. Mira repeated the ancient words the star had revealed to her, a sequence in a language not human. Daniel followed her, speaking the words aloud into the station's systems, projecting the meaning behind them: hope, trust, protection. The star reacted immediately. Pulses of energy softened, filling the station with light that no longer shook or threatened. A calm radiance spread through every module. Daniel felt the pressure in his chest ease. Mira's hand relaxed in his. It worked, she said, her voice breaking with relief. It listened. We guided it. The commander finally recovered, staring at the glowing star with awe. What just happened? He asked. Daniel stepped forward, carefully keeping Mira beside him. The star is alive. It listens. It judges intent. And it responds only to trust and care. The commander's face shifted from confusion to disbelief. You controlled it? Mira's eyes met his. We did not control it. We guided it. The star is not ours to command. It is older than humanity. It is a teacher, not a tool. For a long moment, silence filled the deck. The crew stared at the star, now calm and steady, its glow soothing rather than threatening. The energy readings had normalized. Daniel felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Mira had carried this burden alone for years, and now, together, they had prevented disaster. The next day, the crew gathered to discuss the events. Many were eager to study the star further, but Daniel and Mira explained what they had learned. They urged caution, stressing that any attempt to communicate without understanding could be catastrophic. Commander Harris listened, slowly coming to understand. He finally nodded. We will respect your guidance. The star is not ours to control. We will observe, but we will not interfere. Mira let out a long breath. It is the only way. The star must choose to reveal itself or remain hidden. Humans cannot force it. Over the following weeks, life on the station returned to a cautious routine. Daniel and Mira continued their watch side by side. The bond between them had grown stronger. They no longer spoke of fear or isolation. They spoke of hope and understanding. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck, Daniel asked, "Will it ever speak again?" Mira smiled faintly. It will, but only when it knows we are ready, and when we act with trust, not fear. Daniel glanced at the glowing star. Its pulses were gentle now, almost like a heartbeat. He could feel a quiet warmth in his chest. He realized that humanity had survived not because of technology or skill, but because of empathy, trust, and connection. He looked at Mira, who returned his gaze with quiet pride. "We did it together," she said softly. "Yes," Daniel agreed. Together. The star's light bathed the observation deck in calm radiance. Daniel and Mira stood side by side holding hands. For the first time, they felt the full weight of what they had endured and the hope for what could come. Humanity had been tested, and it had passed not with power, but with understanding. And as the star pulsed gently in the void, Daniel knew that this moment, this shared experience, would shape every human life that looked up at the sky from this station and beyond. The star was alive, and it had chosen to listen.